Myanmar Hunda partially pardons Aung San Suu Kyi. UNESCO says Venice should be added to the heritage danger list. US imposes sanctions on 20 individuals and 29 companies in Maldives. Sri Lanka's key inflation rate nearly halves to 6.3% in July. What is Great Barrier Reef? Russian and Ukraine war could give Japan a chance to take control of disputed Kuril Islands. Peace negotiations summit on Ukraine crisis. Nepal witnesses surge in dengue cases. What is Messier 57? The genetic causes of Raynaud's phenomenon. Champion of Myanmar's democracy, Aung San Suu Kyi has been pardoned in 5 of 19 charges brought against her by the military junta after coup in 2021. The amnesty, marking an important Buddhist religious day, Dhammakaka, will reduce her 33 years jail term by 6 years. The 78-year-old Nobel laureate Suu Kyi was last week moved from prison to home arrest in the capital. On Monday, military junta extended a state of emergency for another 6 months, and that way the junta postponed an election promised by August this year. According to critics, extension of emergency will prolong the crisis in Myanmar. The UN's cultural agency has said the iconic Italian city Venice should be added to a list of World Heritage Sites in danger. The United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, in its report said the city is at risk of irreversible damage from overwhelming tourism, overdevelopment and rising sea levels due to climate change. The agency aims to encourage the better preservation of the sites for the future. The UNESCO report blamed the Italian authorities for a lack of strategic vision to solve the problems faced by one of Italy's most picturesque cities. A spokesperson for Venice municipality said they will discuss the report with Italian government. The report comes as a blow to authorities who are accused of failing to protect the historic city and the surrounding lagoon. The United States has imposed sanctions on 20 individuals and 29 companies for providing financial support to the operations of ISIS and Al Qaeda terrorist groups in the Maldives. The State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said the aim of this designation is to deter and disrupt financial and other forms of support for terrorist activities within Maldives. Among those named in the sanctions are 18 ISIS and ISIS-K facilitators and 2 Al-Qaeda operatives, along with 29 associated companies. Miller said that United States is steadfast in its commitment to counter threats posed by these terrorist support networks, both locally and internationally, and to ensure they are deprived of funding and resources for carrying out attacks. Sri Lanka's key inflation rate nearly halved to 6.3% in July from 12% last month. The island nation's statistics department released the number for Colombo district earlier this week. This is the first instance where inflation has dropped to single digits in over a year since the crisis hit Indian Ocean island. Tight monetary and fiscal policy measures are being attributed to the attainment of central bank's self-imposed target of 6%. In addition, in February this year, the government changed the base year of inflation in its calculation from 2013 to 2021. Sri Lanka had faced a runaway inflation of up to 70% recorded last year in September. With generous Indian assistance of 4 billion USD, the island managed to stay afloat while bringing about key policy changes to ease the inflation. At the same time, Sri Lanka's economy is expected to record a 2% contraction, according to government estimates, after shrinking 7.8% last year. However, encouraged by inflation easing faster than expected, the central bank cut policy rates by 450 basis points in June and July this year. Meanwhile, the wider national consumer price inflation had recorded a figure of 10.8% in June. Sri Lanka's national consumer price inflation follows CCPI inflation with a lag of 21 days. A UNESCO Heritage Committee recently stopped short of listing Australia's Great Barrier Reef as a site that is in danger, but warned the world's biggest coral reef ecosystem remained under serious threat from pollution and warming of oceans. It lies in Pacific Ocean off the northeastern coast of Queensland, Australia, in the Coral Sea. It is the longest and largest coral reef system in the world. It extends in roughly a northwest southeast direction for more than 2000 kilometers at an offshore distance ranging from 16 to 160 kilometers, and its width ranges from 60 to 250 kilometers. It has an area of some 350,000 square kilometers. It is composed of over 2,500 individual reefs of varying sizes and shapes and over 900 islands. It was designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1981. Much of the Great Barrier Reef is a marine protected area managed by Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority of Australia. It is estimated that the reef is home to around 1,500 species of fish and around 600 different coral species. Corals are marine, invertebrate animals that belong to the xylem Nidaria. Coral exist as individual polyps, which are small, sac-like organisms with a mouth surrounded by tentacles. The polyps secrete a hard external skeleton made of calcium carbonate, which forms the basis of coral structure. On 1st August 1838, slavery was abolished in Jamaica. It had been introduced by Spanish settlers 300 years earlier in 1509. On 2nd August 1939, Albert Einstein wrote a letter to President Franklin D. Roosevelt concerning the possibility of atomic weapons. A single bomb of this type carried by boat and exploded in a port might very well destroy the whole port together with some of the surrounding territory. 6 years later, on 6 August 1945, the first atomic bomb developed by US was dropped on the Japanese port of Hiroshima. In Japan, conservative voices are hinting that Russian and Ukraine war could give Japan a chance to take control of disputed Kuril Islands. These are a set of four islands situated between the Sea of Okhotsk and the Pacific Ocean near the north of Japan's northernmost prefecture, Hokkaido. Japan refers to them as northern territories, Russia calls them the Kuril Islands, and South Korea named them as Dokdo Islands. These are parts of Pacific Ring of Fire Belt and have over 100 volcanoes, of which 35 are said to be active volcanoes along with hot springs. Both Russia and Japan claim sovereignty over them, though the islands have been under Russian control since the end of World War II. The Soviet Union had seized the islands at the end of World War II and by 1949 had expelled its Japanese residents. Tokyo claims that the disputed islands have been part of Japan since the early 19th century. What lies behind this dispute? According to Tokyo, Japan's sovereignty over the islands is confirmed by several treaties like Shimoda Treaty of 1855, 1875 Treaty for the exchange of Sakhalin for the Kuril Islands, and Portsmouth Treaty of 1905 signed after Russo-Japanese War, in which Japan had won. Russia, on the other hand, claims the Yalta Agreement and Potsdam Declaration 1945 as the proof of its sovereignty and argues that San Francisco Treaty of 1951 is legal evidence that Japan had acknowledged Russian sovereignty over the islands. Under Article 2 of the treaty, Japan had renounced all right, title, and claim to the Kuril Islands. The National Security Advisor of India, Ajit Doval, arrived in Jeddah on 5th August 2023 to participate in a crucial meeting focused on finding a resolution to the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. The meeting, attended by senior officials from approximately 40 countries, aims to establish key principles for a future peace settlement to end Russia's war in Ukraine. Upon his arrival at Jeddah airport, Ajit Doval was welcomed by Ambassador Dr. Suhail Khan and Consul General Mohammad Shahid Alam. The meeting also sees participation from Ukrainian and Western diplomats who had high hopes for achieving a breakthrough in the peace negotiations. Among the attendees are Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor of the United States, and the Chinese Special Envoy. The presence of Chinese officials marks a significant diplomatic victory over both Ukraine and Saudi Arabia. The meeting in Jeddah presents a critical opportunity for various nationals to collectively address the complex situation in Ukraine and work towards a lasting peace settlement. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky expressed his optimism on Wednesday, stating that he envisions the current initiative culminating in a peace summit. The summit aims to gather leaders from across the globe to endorse the principles for a peace settlement based on President Zelensky's comprehensive 10-point formula. The recent surge in dengue cases globally has been alarming and poses significant global health challenges. In the month of monsoon, dengue infection is on rise in Nepal. More than 5,000 people have been infected with dengue in Nepal this year. Newspapers reports that all educational institutions have been closed in Dharan to run dengue control campaigns. The chief administrative officer of Dharan said that the schools were shut down to effectively run a campaign against the dengue outbreak for surge and destruction of mosquito larvae that grows in clean water. The Minister for Health and Population of Nepal has informed that in controlling dengue infection in Koshi province, the BP Koirala Institute of Health Sciences in Dharan has mobilized a team of doctors and health workers. An awareness program involving the local government and all stakeholders in the infected areas is launched. The dengue virus has taken the lives of 8 people since June's first week onward. Recently, astronomers used James Webb Space Telescope to capture new image of Messier 57, more popularly known as Ring Nebula. The Ring Nebula is about 2000 light years away in the constellation Lyra and was discovered in 1779. The object is exceptionally bright and can be spotted with moderately sized telescopes. It was born from a dying star that expelled its outer layers into space, making it a planetary nebula. Planetary nebula come in a various of shapes and patterns, some that include delicate glowing rings, wispy clouds, and expanding bubbles. This telescope was built in collaboration between NASA and the European Space Agency and the Canadian Space Agency and was launched in December 2021. It is presently at a point in space known as Sun-Earth L2 Lagrange point, approximately 1.5 million kilometers beyond Earth's orbit. Lagrange point 2 is one of the 5 points in the orbital plane of the Earth-Sun system. It is the largest, most powerful infrared space telescope ever built. It will examine every phase of cosmic history, from the Big Bang to the formation of galaxies, stars, and planets to the evolution of our solar system. The genetic causes of Raynaud's phenomenon was recently probed by researchers at Queen Mary University of London's Precision Healthcare Research Institute and Berlin's Berlin Institute of Health. It is a condition that causes the blood vessels in the extremities to narrow, restricting blood flow. The episodes or attacks usually affect fingers and toes. In rare cases, attacks occur in other areas such as ears or nose. An attack usually happens from exposure to cold or emotional stress. During a Raynaud's attack, arterioles and capillaries in your fingers and toes tighten more than they should. This condition is named for the French doctor who first identified it in 1862. You may hear it called by many names. There are two types: primary Raynaud's. It happens without any other illness behind it. The symptoms are often mild. Secondary Raynaud's. It results from another illness. It's often a condition that attacks your body's connective tissues. It is less common, but it is more likely to cause serious health problems. This can include things like skin sores and gangrene. This happens when cells and tissues in your toes and fingers die from lack of blood. In most people, lifestyle changes such as staying warm keep symptoms under control. But in severe cases, repeated attacks lead to skin sores or gangrene, death, and decay of tissues. The treatment depends on how severe and serious the conditions are and whether it is primary or secondary form. Barack Obama, the 44th US president, was born in Honolulu, Hawaii on 4th August 1961. His father was from Kenya, Africa, while his mother was originally from Kansas. Upon completing his college education, young Obama moved to Chicago, becoming active in community affairs. He then attended Harvard Law School, becoming the first African American president of the Harvard Law Review in 1990. He returned to Chicago, worked in a law firm, then entered politics. Elected to the Illinois State Senate in 1996, he went on to become a U.S. Senator in 2004. 4 years later, he successfully challenged former First Lady Hillary Clinton for the Democratic presidential nomination and went on to defeat Republican John McCain in the general election. November 4, 2008, thus becoming the first president of African American origin.